I'm really happy that I'm here and you are organizing such a wonderful session by the World Human Rights Conference. And the subject is very important since the role of media in protection of human rights. And I'm representing Kerala Kaumudi, a newspaper, a century-old newspaper, which has a tradition for fighting against human rights violations, especially for the downtrodden, the untouchables, and lower castes in the society. So we were celebrating our 100 years, and I'm so happy that I could speak in this occasion. And when you go to the preamble to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948, it says, recognition of the inherent dignity and of the equal and inalienable rights of all members of the human family in the formation of freedom, justice, and peace in the world. There are three key words in human rights. One is, the most important is freedom, then equally important, justice and peace. So violation of freedom, violation of justice, violation of peace, it's all come under human rights violations. As Radhakrishnan was saying about the history, the concept of human rights has arisen from the natural rights of all humans, as we all know. It can be traced back to thousands of years from the Vedas. In India, to the Vedas, it has said about the human right, to the Hammurabi Code, to the Magna Carta in 1215, the French Declaration of Human Rights, and the American Bill of Rights. Time and again, history shows the existence of human rights has been recognized and accepted as a necessity component for the well-being of civilization at any given time. And also, if you take the Persian Empire, Iran, established unprecedented principle of human rights in the 6th and 7th century BC under the reign of Cyrus. 3 centuries later, the Mauryan Empire in India established the principle of civil rights. Religious documents, the Vedas, the Bible, the Quran, Analects of Confucius, all refer to the duties and rights and responsibilities of the citizens. If you come to the 17th and 18th centuries, European philosophers developed the concept of natural rights, the notion that possess certain rights by virtue of being human. And the United States Declaration, as Radhakrishnan was telling here, or the concept of natural rights and states, that all men are created equal and that endowed by their Creator with certain alienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Now, coming to the subject, the role of media in protecting human rights. You know, in countries where there are no media, the human rights are violated more. And as Radhakrishnan told here about the awareness of human rights, even in US, it's only 8% of the people know about human rights and what are the fundamental rights we have. So, in a way, media all over the world has much bigger role to play. If media exists like an ailing old man, it will not be able to do anything for the society. Media should be encouraged to take bold decisions. In doing so, the spoils be swept away and spaces will be created where one can talk freely the harms being done to the society. Powerful media that works in a vibrant democratic country will be able to fight against human rights violation. Take the case of India. to make media powerful, Indian democracy need to be strengthened. You know what is going in the democratic structures in India, especially the atrocities against women. It's a huge cry and fight for the freedom of women and rights of women in India. India happens to be the largest democratic country in the world, but even in India, women are persecuted and atrocities against women are increasing. So, violation against the rights of women, children, and the other weaker sections of the society. That is a big human rights violation that should be, in a way, I think Indian media has taken a greater role, especially the print and the visual media. During, when the Delhi issue was there, Indian media took a very strong stand, and even also the social media. We know, if we speak about the media, there is the new media, the advent of new technology. We have the media, the social media, the Twitter, Facebook. It can be also called as a media because it gives information. It's a kind of, it came to the role of a mass media, where sometimes they get information much before the traditional media, the print media and the visual media report things. You know that Osama bin Laden, when he was caught by the US, a person who was in Abbottabad, he was in his room. He was tweeting for the first time. In the Twitter, he said some activities are going on and US Army had come there and think that a big person has been captured or something like that. It came in the social media first. Then only after the American president Obama came to the media and told them that Osama bin Laden been captured. So I think the role of social media is increasing, and social media can play a very significant role in protecting the rights of human beings. And in India, now we have, there are a lot of discussions going on Indian government's repressive laws such as the Armed Forces Special Powers Act to reform, and there is a need to reform the security forces including the police and to prioritize the protection of vulnerable groups such as Dalits, religious minorities and women. You know the fight of Iram Shamila. Last 12 years she is making the fight against the repressive laws, the Armed Forces Special Powers Act and all. Even she couldn't win, but the fight is still going on. I think media has played a big role supporting her fight. It's a very symbolic fight, maybe a fight of, maybe the fight of a strong woman, symbolizing the entire women of the country. And for us journalists and media people, I think we have greater risk when we are reporting the human rights violations, especially the moderator is coming from Kashmir. Lot of media people had a hard times in reporting the issues connected to the army and the terrorists, because many places the media are asked not to report things. If they report, there is a chance for what you call even the risk of their life. In Punjab, the press was under threat from militants who had imposed a crude form of censorship on the local press by enforcing publication of their dictates as to perpetuate the fear psychosis. That's the mainstay of terrorists, you know. In a double jeopardy, government warned the press of use of rule of law against publication of any objectionable advertisement or advertisement in the newspaper. In a way, government was used in the other side when you were supporting or giving some documents of the terrorists, then the government will be against the journalists and the media, saying that you are not supposed to publish these documents. The Press Council in India in 1991 cautioned that it would not be desirable to shut out the point of view of the militants completely, as the people in a democratic society have a right to know what the militants stand for and the basis of their arguments. That is also important. Usually the government say you should not report what the militants stand for. So sometimes the media is confused. The terrorists, what we the government call, they say that we are freedom fighters. For a country, some people are terrorists, and for another country, these terrorists are freedom fighters, because they are fighting for justice. There is a ethnicity. You have to study about their ethnicity, their freedom. So how can you evaluate whether they are terrorists or human rights activists or what you call the freedom fighters? Even when our leaders, great leaders, were fighting against the British rule, many people call them, including Bhagat Singh, they call them terrorists. Now they are the national leaders for us. So in a time when people call them terrorists, after 50 years, 100 years, they are counted as freedom fighters. So for the media, this is a confusing role, whether to support them or to give, fight, to write against them. Sometimes it's a confusing situation. And the media can make people aware of the need to promote certain values in the cause of human rights, which are eternal value to the mankind. Peace, non-violence, disarmament, maintenance and promotion of ecological balances, an unpolluted environment, and ensuring human rights to all irrespective of caste, color, creed, and should be the minimum common agenda for the media. And it can make people aware of their rights, expose its violation, focus attention on people and areas in need of the protection of human rights, and pursue their case till they achieve them. And media can also give publicly to the individuals and organizations which are engaged in securing human rights. This will encourage as well as motivate others to do the similar work. Media can inform and educate the people of rights and suggest ways and means by which they can solve their problems, thus empowering them to protect their rights. Since media plays the role of communication between the state and the public, you know, it's a kind of connecting bridge between the state and the public. It can also play an effective role of making the authorities aware of their duties, especially on human rights. Media's new role today is reporting, analyzing, and commenting. It faces a challenge in playing the role in protecting the human rights in the world. As I said earlier, while playing this new role, there is a risk of misuse. When in the media, we can report things in a wrong way. Always we get reports from the police or from the authorities, and they can mislead mislead the media people. When police, they do the human rights violation and they give a very what you call reports that are completely wrong to the situation. So I think journalists should set a Lakshman Rekha while reporting human rights violations. You have to inquire, you have to go deep into the situation and make comments judiciously and independently. The main aim before the journalist should have to be give facts, and we say always facts are sacred. In journalism we always say facts are sacred, but not in a manner and with purpose to create sensation. That's a big issue that media faces in the world today, to get more circulation, to ask more people to read the newspaper. As Radhakrishnan was saying about, it has becoming industry. It's a corporate industry also. So they want more circulation for the newspaper, more viewers for the television. So they sensationalize things. So always facts are not being seen. And to arouse the sentiments of the people. Projection and language should be decent and civilized. Journalists should not add insult to the inquiry. Media should refrain from giving statements and pictures that are flaring. Since media is the mirror of the society, care should be taken that the mirror is not hazy. I'm going to the last part of my speech. While reporting such violation, media should not be influenced by authorities. That is a very important thing. Always there is a temptation to report the official version because it is easy. You get a press release, you can report. But going into the details to get the other side of the story, what the victim has to say, what the other side has to say, what the militants has to say, what the terrorist has to say, it is not easy. So I think there should be a kind of balance in reporting, seeing all sides of the coin. And also, I think a great crime that is committed on human rights by the media is, I think that's a big discussion all over the world, the intrusion of privacy. We don't know how the privacy of a person is also a kind of human right. It's a fundamental right. I think in the Western world, this discussion came when the Princess Diana died in a car accident, when the paparazzis followed her for getting good photos that can get them millions of pounds. So intrusion of privacy, that was a big discussion in UK when the Princess Diana, not only in UK, in all over the world. Even the freelance photographers taking photos from the plane of Steffi Graf when she was taking a bath in a pool and publishing in the newspaper. So intrusion of privacy of a person, how much you have the freedom for the press to go into the privacy of a person, the intrusion of privacy, it's a crime from the media. Freedom of expression, as we all know, is a sacred right, well accepted over the globe, and journalists should, and we respect this freedom. In Indian Constitution, it finds a guaranteed fundamental right. Government of India, in tune with the constitutional mandate, professes its anxiety to protect and safeguard these fundamental rights. But usually, it doesn't happen. And also, during the war and during when the troubled situation, the army comes in. They do whatever they want. But security forces in India and all over the world, there are lack of accountability. You know, during the Iraq war and other wars, there was a lot of complaint against United States Army. You know, the prison camp, where many of the captured prisoners, they were persecuted. Some were killed. And it's through the media it came to light. Even now in Sri Lanka, you know what is happening in Sri Lanka. The Prabhakaran's son was a child, was killed by the army. The visuals of the killing has been already published in the visual media and the print media. So, fighting against LTT, the government and the army, official army is doing human rights violation. That's a serious problem that has to be seen by the people, the media, and the whole society. And we say that India is more democratic compared to the communist or other dictatorship countries. But even in India, 800 people tortured to death in a year in Indian prisons. 800 people in Indian prison tortured to death. So it's a big number. So we as media, I think we are playing a good role, but there is more to be done. So I'm ending this speech by congratulating the organization, the National Forum for People's Rights, for organizing such a wonderful seminar. And thank you very much.